Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is our year to shine, and I am going to be talking more about Francine Jay's book, The Joy of Less. And tonight we're talking about storage spaces, and also the very last section of this going through the house section is just a quick talk about gifts and heirlooms and sentimental value things. So I'll touch upon that too. I feel like this storage space chapter, more than any other chapter in the book, it felt like a lecture to me, because I felt like Francine seems to have very strong feelings about having storage in the first place. I mean, remember she described her bedroom as basically like a mattress on the floor, no bedside tables or anything like that. So she's gotten to the point where she's comfortable living like that. And so the idea that somebody would have like a storage unit like I have, she just mentions that's like, get rid of it, there's no need for that. But the idea that people would have excess stuff in their garages, attics, basements, it's I can tell it like brings on nausea for her or something like that. Like she just doesn't get it, and this whole chapter just feels like, you know, what are you doing if you have these things? Like I felt like a little bit of judgment. I don't know, it just touched a nerve, I think. Because, all right, so I have a storage unit. And I mean, I need one because I have business things that are in there, and I have a tiny place. And so I have 3 total closets in here. And I don't want to have to try to figure out how to stuff my Christmas ornaments somewhere. And I have excess furnishings, like additional, these are things I don't really need, but I don't want to let go of, like extra curtain rods and curtains and things from other places that I've lived. But again, I've shared with you guys, I might want to have a larger place in the future, so I don't really want to get rid of stuff like that. But she does say something like, if you have a storage unit and you can't even name what's in there, then that's a real problem. But I will say, I like having a storage unit because remember we talked about the inner and outer realms, like, or outer circles, she calls it circles. That's the outer realm. And so I do know what's in there. And like, for instance, now I've been working in the garden, and that's where all my stuff is, because I don't have like a shed in my backyard or anything. So I can just drive over there. It's really close to where I live, and just go and get out what I need for the yard, and then it will go back in there at the end of the season. So I guess, yeah, it touched a nerve, because I guess I have a need for storage just because my situation is unique in that I live in a small place, that I have business stuff that has to be saved, that I'm not going to also like put that under my bed or anything. And then I have things that I guess I am saving for maybe a future life. I don't know. At some point I might get ready to get ready to get rid of them. She does say when you are ready to do a big clean out, say it is the garage, the basement, the attic, or maybe it is a storage unit, that you can do it gradually. Like if you feel like you need to go box by box because it just feels too overwhelming, you can do that and really be meticulous about it, or you can just do it like all in one day. And she talks about making it like a little fun thing with music and getting the whole family involved. I was thinking back as I was reading this about a time when I was married and we decided to clean out the garage, and Francine's approach is the same as what we did, which was like we just took every single thing out of the garage and we had it all in the driveway. And we had people all day long coming and thinking it was a yard sale. It was actually pretty funny. We probably could have been like, hey, well, we'll take $5 for these stools or something. Like, I don't think we really wanted to get rid of anything at the time, but it did get the attention of people driving by. So you might find that happens too. If you decide to empty out your attic and it all goes on your front lawn, you might all of a sudden have people stopping and seeing if you're selling anything. So could be good. You don't have to like prepare to have a yard sale, but it could be some sort of impromptu thing. So again, getting the family involved, making it a fun thing with the music, and it's the same thing as we've done in all the other rooms as far as deciding what's trash, treasure, or transfer. And it sounds like, again, she seems very appalled that anybody would store anything because she lives much more simply than I will ever live, I have to say. But she basically says, like, you don't need to have things like ice skates. You can rent those when you go. Maybe you even only go once a year. She questions the decorations for holidays, but maybe you are like me and you find joy in having a wreath on your door, so you have wreaths in a place that you store things. She also mentions that, like, in a garage, and this made me laugh too because I'm thinking about my dad in all of his workspaces that he's had. She again talks about how even in the garage, like a workstation or anything like that should still be empty. So she talks about getting like a pegboard and having all your tools and stuff organized. And I mean, I know that there would be some guys that would be into that, but I think most often there's like a project going. It's not really like the kind of place that like a guy wants to be super organized and clean up. But she does make another good point that if stuff gets into one of those areas, like the attic, the basement, deep storage, it often takes a big effort to get rid of it. So why not, we talked about this in another video, why not when you replace a television or some sort of electronic gadget, why not get rid of the one that, and it doesn't have to be trash, it can be transferred. Why not just get rid of it at the time instead of putting it somewhere where it's just going to be this thing that you're going to be bringing out onto the lawn someday when you finally get the nerve to go through your attic or whatever. So again, this whole section was basically feeling like a lecture to me, because if she wants us to live so simply like the way she described her living space, then she doesn't understand why anybody would hold on to things in a storage area. And I guess I'm making a case for it. Oh, hello, I have a kitty. You might have excess pet things in storage too. Like maybe you own a giant cat tree or something like that, and then right now it doesn't fit where you're living, and so maybe you might want to have it in the future or something like that. Who knows? She just made me think of that when she jumped up. I don't have one of those things, but don't turn your attic or basement or garage into a museum of your past. Turn a critical eye on on things like yearbooks, swimming trophies, letter sweaters, graduation gowns, and other memorabilia. Unless you're trying to plan to don a football or cheerleading uniform again, and more power to you if you are, she says. Free yourself of these artifacts. What do you think about that? Because when I read that, I thought, I probably look at my yearbook maybe once every 5 years, and usually it's because somebody died, or I don't know, my sister says she met someone who knew me and I'm like, I don't remember that person, or somebody friends me on Facebook and I'm like, I don't know who that is, I recognize the name, like, so it's very rare. But I also can't imagine really getting rid of yearbooks though. I mean that those are things that I just feel like you're supposed to have those. I don't know, but I guess there's plenty of people that probably don't. So again, this is why another thing I have in storage. So I would not be passing Francine's test in this respect at all. Give similar thoughts to anything that's hidden, that's not special. If it's not special enough to keep it in your house, she says, question whether it's special enough to keep it at all. So that's when you're doing the paring down. As wonderful as storage spaces are, they're generally not clean or climate controlled also. So, right, say you're saving your wedding dress to pass down to the generations, and you're storing it in some place that's gonna get mothballs or smell horrible. So you have to think about, if something's that much of a treasure or heirloom that you're keeping it, that you should be really keeping it in an appropriate place. My storage unit is actually climate controlled, so that's good. But I've had, the other one I used to have wasn't, but I never really kept any of my personal stuff in there. It was mostly business. And then again, here she is. She said this to us one other time about hobby things. So say you have a lot of hobbies and they require a lot of equipment. You're a golfer and you have every kind of golf club. You know, she wants you to pursue sports and hobbies that require little equipment. Again, I mean, what if, I don't know how you pick and choose those things. I suppose if you're thinking about taking up a new hobby, that could be a consideration. If you really want to live simply, you might think, well, I'm not going to take up golfing because there's a lot of equipment. Take a similar approach to hobbies. Well, woodworking, poetry, or metal smithing are wonderful hobbies. They require numerous tools and supplies. Learning a language, writing poetry, or sketching may bring you similar satisfaction without all the stuff. And then again, be a borrower, like she said about the ice skates. And containing in this area is like being a good gatekeeper. Again, getting rid of stuff before it even gets stuck in those places. And if you're storing things, at least she does say a few good things about find appropriate containers and separate things so that whatever's in the storage area is at least organized and you can find things. Clearly label and potentially color code containers so that you don't have to comb through a dozen boxes to locate what you need. Better yet, take one step further. Make an inventory of each container's contents. Print the list and tape it to the front of the box. Remember I talked about last time how there was an auditory recording on a phone or whatever of that, so it's kind of similar to that. With such a system in place, you'll be able to lay your hands on anything in a matter of minutes, as well as keep out any stray items. Right, so if you go through stuff, you might find that you have some weird thing that doesn't go with everything else, and you might find some things you can get rid of. Since storage spaces are out of sight, it's tempting to cram them with whatever will fit, but that's not being very minimalist, she says. Instead, make liberal use of limits to keep things under control. First, consider restricting the contents of what will fit on shelving or vertical storage. Take the floor out of the equation. You'll remove volumes of potential clutter and free up the space. Right, because in another part she said that, remember, the floor is your biggest surface. She said in these places it's usually dark, and if you trip it would be really bad, probably in the basement. You hit your head on the concrete or something. So it is also important to keep those things clear. If you must stow away keepsakes, memorabilia, and other sentimental items, restrict them to a single box. So this is very similar to what we've done in other rooms. If we're not careful, our storage spaces can become museums. Yeah. And as far as maintaining a clutter-free storage space, you must be a good gatekeeper, as I said a few minutes ago. Question any item headed for the attic, basement, or garage before it gets there. Right. Additionally, consider doing, and this is when I talked about having a fun little a one-day declutter for these areas. And then it provides a simple opportunity to purge your household of excess stuff. And since it's like, she also says, so like once you get everything out on the lawn, and again, it's like when you took everything out of your room, if you did that, like in your living room, and you took everything out and then you put it back in, you might say like, wow, that took a lot of effort to bring it all out here, and I don't really want to bring this and that and the other thing back in. So, and she also mentions doing this on maybe an annual basis. Make it a tradition, and everyone will look forward to this annual fresh start if you kind of have like one fun day. So what about, especially in attics and storage spaces, what about this last chapter is about gifts, heirlooms, and sentimental items. And I feel like she touched upon sentimental, gifty stuff maybe at the beginning when we were first talking about the book as a whole. And she makes some really good points. In fact, I laughed out loud at one part I mean, she talks at the beginning about how every occasion these days is a potential for gift giving, and it's kind of become out of control. A lot of times people don't even remember what they gave, what they got, and yeah. And I said this in another video when we were talking about sentimental things. I suggested to one of you who had made a comment that if your family insists on giving gifts and like you're trying to pare that down, then just express your preference for consumables. Tell them how glorious a gift of gourmet cheese, pasta, or coffee beans would be, or mention your sweet tooth and speak longingly of baked goods and artisan chocolates. Make it known that you love fancy bath salts, hand-rolled candles, or scented body lotions. Remind them of your green thumb and request plants, flowers, or seeds for your garden. And alternatively, suggest experiences like music lessons, theater tickets, and membership to a museum, or propose exchanging gifts of service like babysitting, snow shoveling, a car wash, things like that. So yeah, ask for something that's going to be an experience or something that you like rather than something that's going to collect dust. And I think I skipped over it. Oh, maybe that was, I don't remember. She says something like, you know, because you might have your grandmother's Hummel collection or something, you know, those figurines that now they're worth nothing, but at one point they were pretty, they had worth to them. But so she says something like, your grandmother wouldn't expect you to dust her every day. Like, she's not living in those items. It's something that she owned, just like I own this chair right now. Like, does that mean that this chair is me? I mean, I suppose there could be things where it's like, if that was your grandfather's chair and you have all these memories of him and it was like, you know, then it almost is like a part of him lives in that item. But again, it's separating the sentiment, which I think Francine seems to do a lot more easily than I think the average person. But I thought it was funny. I don't remember if that's the thing I laughed out loud at, but where she said, like, your grandmother wouldn't expect you to dust her every day. You know, so why are you holding on to these things? So when it comes to decluttering, heirlooms are the sticking point. In many cases, we would have never chosen to acquire such objects, let alone commit to caring for them for the rest of our life. Yet suddenly we find ourselves dusting around the Hummels, like I said, and wondering where to hang a painting of poker-playing dogs or trying to incorporate a Victorian fainting couch into our contemporary family room. And it's usually when a loved one passes away. And if possible, keep the heirlooms boxed up. Like, maybe you can't decide right in that moment because it's grief related. So if possible, keep them boxed and stow them away until you're ready to make a decision. And the most important thing is, here we go, that these items were simply things that they owned, just like the things that you own. Yeah. Our obligation is not necessarily to keep items we inherit, but to find the best use for them. Don't let squabbling among heirs compel you to keep things you didn't want. In other words, like, don't hoard the silver serving bowls so that your cousin doesn't get them. Yeah, that can be hard when people pass away. If your heirlooms are valuable or historically significant, you can lend or donate them to a museum. Like she mentions someone like a World War I uniform. Maybe a museum would love to have something like that of your relatives. And then sell the items that are actually worth something and put them towards something great. Like one of you mentioned that you had some baseball cards, and those are mentioned. Uncle John would probably be thrilled if his sports memorabilia played for his first nephew's baseball camp, you know? So put the money towards something really nice. The intention was not to burden you with musty antiques, but to do something special for you. So all the better if you can transform their generosity into something you'll truly appreciate. And then you could also donate the proceeds to their favorite cause or charity, or something maybe in their memory. Maybe they died of a certain kind of cancer and you can donate to that. And no matter the value, sentiment alone will make it difficult to part with some items. But just because you inherited a big collection doesn't mean you have to keep it for the rest of your life. Choose a special piece or two of something and display it proudly. And if the heirloom is a single item, preserve it, just part of it. Like snip a few squares of an old quilt or salvage the pulls from an antique dresser. You'll still have something to remind you of its previous owner. Yeah, maybe you make something new out of it. Yeah. Finally, perhaps you're planning to pass things down to the future generations. And she says, maybe this sounds harsh, but there's a good chance your kids won't want them. They won't have the foggiest idea what to do with folk art and Art Deco sideboard. It won't fit their decor. And if you have valuable items you'd like to bequeath, then gauge their interest. They may be happier helping you sell them now than dealing with them later. Yeah, because if you're holding on to all this stuff and then you pass away, then it's going to be like 2 generations of things for people to go through. And then other things like gifts are hard. She says, if the people live at a distance, it's great. You can write a thank you note, send a picture of yourself in the scarf or whatever it is that you got. And then you can donate it, you could sell it and buy yourself something that you actually do want. You could pass it on as a re-gift. And she said something like, if the person lives locally, you can keep it in a box for a little bit and then put it out maybe for the time that they come to your house, right around the time, within a few months, and then get rid of it because they probably won't ask. And I don't know, I've never felt really a feeling of disappointment if somebody doesn't keep something I gave them, or I don't have any feelings about that. And it's probably because there's a main family member in my family that it's like, whatever you give this person, it ends up in the yard sale, that summer. So if anything lasts, then the person really, really liked it, which is very rare. So I guess maybe because I grew up with that situation, and I don't really, I don't go to my friend's house and go where's that picture that I gave you? Oh, you didn't like it? I probably, like she said, well, I do put a lot of thought into gifts, but I might have forgotten that I even gave it, honestly. So I don't worry about that. But I know that there can be some guilt when you think about it, and people do put thoughts into gifts. And again, she mentions things that you can get stocked up in, like wedding things, children's stuff, handmade things that people gave you, because those really are one of a kind. And also she mentioned souvenirs, and I was thinking, one thing that I do, if I feel really compelled to get a souvenir from a trip, then I look for a Christmas ornament. And then, so I have a lot of Christmas ornaments that are from places that I've been. So that's really fun, because then they're stored with my holiday stuff, and then when I put them up on the tree, it's like a little memory of a certain trip. But yeah, if you feel compelled to buy souvenirs everywhere you go and they're not of function, maybe you can keep a special box, or you have a display, like they have those I forget what the name of it is. It's like a frame, but it has depth to it, so you can put things in on display. I don't know, maybe you have a travel way of storing things. And wedding things, those are hard, but she tells you to try to save one place, or one favor, or what was it, the centerpiece, if it was something major. Photo albums, obviously. Not everybody saves their dress, so I can see with the wedding things that you could potentially have a bunch of those things. And then if you get divorced like I am, then you don't care, and you're like, take it away, garbage. No, I'm only kidding. Actually, I just actually gave everything to my ex-husband. I saved 3 pictures that I really liked of us, and one of me by myself. But I didn't really want to save anything else. I was just slugging it around, and he wanted it, so I just gave it all to him. So if he gets rid of it, then I don't even have to know. That's fine. And again, with all these things, you're asking yourself, why am I saving it? Does it have a use? Do I love it? You know, is it more just about the guilt of saving it? Yeah. Oh, it's so hard. You may be the recipient of someone else's art. Yeah. Graciously accept them and use it a few times in the giver's presence. Send a photo if they, yeah, like I said, if they don't live nearby. But if it's not your taste, don't feel obligated to keep it forever. That's so hard, though. You know. Don't feel guilty. The guilter may have been trying to clear out her clutter. When you receive such a gift, express your gratitude, but don't overdo the enthusiasm, or you'll likely end up with more in the future. That is completely true. Sometimes it's hard to say thank you for something, because then it validates the person's decision to give that to you in the first place, and you almost want to be like, don't ever buy me a candle again. I don't burn candles, you know. I mean, on a rare occasion I do. But this is why I've sort of like phased out gift giving in most cases with friends and family. Because you do get to the point in your life where you have a lot, and somebody just recently wanted to give me some old VHS tapes, because I do still have a VCR, and I said, I'm not taking in anything else right now. I just have gotten rid of a lot of stuff, and I live in a small place, and thank you for thinking of me, but I'm just not taking in anything else. So remember that one in, one out. I'd have to get rid of a bunch of stuff in order to take more in, and at this point I don't really want to accumulate more VHS tapes. I just pared down to my very favorite ones, and I could potentially start converting those over to DVD, I suppose, but I don't know, my VCR works perfectly. So that was our talk about storage, gifts, heirlooms, things that are hard to part with. We have just one more section in the back of the book that I will summarize tomorrow. It's more about like, why are we living simply? How is this affecting the world positively, and having a more simple family life. So I'll summarize that section 4 in a video for you guys. Hopefully tomorrow. I'm trying to do it before the end of the month, and it is a holiday weekend. I hope you're enjoying yourself. We're having so much rain up here. I really want to be out in the yard, but it feels more like April right now than it does almost June. Thinking of you all, lots of love, and I will see you on the next video.